Hello and welcome to this CodeBuddies.org live code hangout. Today we're going to continue working on the Western Friend community website. It's built with Django and Wagtail CMS. This project's been under development for quite a while. We have most of the core features built out, subject to verification and some user experience auditing and things like that. In this project lifecycle, we're in the stage of writing content importers. The project is migrating a website that was built in Drupal over to Wagtail and Django. And all of the content that has been entered into the Drupal website needs to be migrated to the new Wagtail website, so we don't lose any of that. So basically, for each content type in Drupal, we've had to write a custom importer. There's not a standard data model to follow that you could use an off-the-shelf importer such as WordPress that has pretty conventional pages and posts, and you can predict that, and people can write import scripts based on that data structure. Ours are Drupal lets you kind of define your own data content types is what they call them, and with the exception of the title field, there's pretty much a free-form content structure. And similarly, Wagtail has a page model that the main attribute is title, and everything else is you define your own data model. And Django is even more flexible. There's no default data structure. You just define whatever the data model is that suits your project, which is really, in a way, liberating and I think great. Django provides a great development framework, and Wagtail enhances that with a great user experience for content managers. So one of the remaining content types is what are called memorial minutes, and these are memorials they're sort of like obituaries for people in the Western Friend community that are written by their Quaker meeting that they were a member of. So those are called a minute when you write a letter of concern or memorial, in this case, to a community member. I'll show you the data real quick. It's essentially some fields that came over from Drupal, and the body is the main minute. That's where the bulk of the writing is. So this is we're going to need to parse this HTML and break it out into a stream field block. We're also going to need to create relationships between these memorials and article authors. We have a unified content model right now that all of our kind of the people and meetings and organizations are put into one, well, it's three models, but it's one unified thing called a contact. And so we want that these authors, these contacts are also used as the basis for memorial minutes, or at least as a relation. And so some of these memorial minutes are written about people who have also been contributors to the Western Friend magazine or other multimedia. And likewise, I'll have to see how far we get on the note of multimedia, because that was a separate collection that got merged in. And we might not be taking that into account. Just realized we've got these article author ID. I think we also need a memorial author ID, because there were people who, multimedia library author ID, because there were people who contributed multimedia library items, but not articles, and those were on the Drupal side of things, they were in separate collections, so we're trying to unify these collections. That means we have to really be careful in finding the most simple and direct way of linking them together, which is essentially their content ID, which is an internal identifier that's generated by Drupal on each, what it calls a node. So that said, I'll have to come back to this question about the library item authors with Mary on our next Wednesday meeting. But let's go ahead and dig into the code a bit. So we've got this content migration app where I've written what is essentially a Django management command for each of our content types. And our contacts is the main, that's CBC on contacts. Our contacts is the main model where it's 3 models where we're kind of identifying people who've contributed to or participated in the Western Friend community. So at the end of the import, all of our data that is relating to these contacts needs to have foreign key relationships to these. And you can also see that I'm keeping track of these IDs here during the transition period, so that we make sure our data has good integrity. All right, let's take a look then at what we can duplicate. I can when we write these importers, let's take for example the magazine authors importer. It has several helper functions that help split out the code a little bit, make it more readable. But at the basis, and as you can see, we have meetings, organizations, and people who are the main kind of entities in our contact bucket. Then the basis of this importer is what's called a management command. And those management commands take arguments. So in here, we're passing a file. We're storing it as a file name string. We're going to open that file with a CSV dictionary reader and parse it to a list, which I could have done all in one line, I suppose. But it's not bad. And then we're going to iterate over those and have a little progress bar. And the thing is, now we need to get those the data out of those dictionaries and into our database. And that's basically what the rest of the script does, is it gets the properties, figures out what type of entity we're looking at of those 3. For Memorial Minutes, we're only going to be looking at people, so that'll make it simpler. But in this case, we're then passing it off to one of these functions where the actual logic is implemented. So I'm not going to go too far into that. The code is on GitHub. I'm just looking for an example that we can copy from. So this is, since we're not actually importing, well, it's tricky because this is a little bit different. We're importing Memorial Minutes, but in some cases we need to create a person. In some cases we need to basically query a person, get one out of the database based on the ID, and then create the reference. So this is closer to importing library items. So I'm going to use this. We want this parse media blocks, and we also want to parse the body to a stream field, the memorial body. So let's just create this new management. Let's create a Git branch first. And so the management command actually just takes the name from the file directly. So the file name is the command, import memorials. And it's a Python script, so get the Python file. And again, I'm just pasting this in. I'm going to clean it up, but just to give me a few things off the bat. So I don't have to strain my memory too much. Then we do import the models. from contact. This should actually be contacts plural. I think I made this contact a while ago before I realized the convention of pluralizing app names and the model names are singular. So, I can clean that up, but this is used in a lot of locations, so refactoring that, hopefully. I would have to just be really careful. So we don't need this. We will take a file and I think the memorials has an index page too. There it is. Let's grab that. So the index page is basically where you nest. It's a hierarchical page model, so you nest all your related content under a parent page. And this index page serves as that parent page to organize the content as well as display it. It gets a query set of all the memorials and renders them as like an index, a listing. And so we're going to open the file. And let's just parse it in one. And just make it a little bit easier to read. All right, so we got memorial and memorials. This TQDM gives us a little display of the progress. And here's a problem, and I actually need to make sure our data aligns here. So we have the Drupal node ID, memorial ID in this case. And our data model over here in the memorials, let's double check. I'm going to make a couple migrations, I think, on this memorials data model one. I got to make sure I have the Drupal metadata, which I don't. I have the memorial metadata, given name, family name, date of birth, date of death, dates are approximate memorial minute, which is a rich text field. Okay, not a stream field. This might work out with the rich text field if it sanitizes the HTML input. I can perhaps just pass in this raw HTML and let it handle it. That would save some time from having to parse it out into stream field items, which I've already written a script to do this, parsing these bodies, these essentially HTML blob body content model from Drupal over into the Wagtail stream field format. So we got a foreign key to the meeting. So I need to add two fields, at least one to identify the what here is called the memorial ID in the data, and the other one will be to allow. I think it'll be called a display name. Essentially, sometimes the display name on the memorial minute is different from the given in family name, as they would be kind of presented by default. Or the full name here, you can see that's probably not how Mary will always want to display. So let's go ahead and migrate in a couple fields. Let's start here. Sure we can do that. Okay, good. Sorry. And the foreign key. So this given family name will actually come from the person. So let's try that. First, we'll remove them. Save the file. So there we go. And I just need to. This is coming from Wagtail because I also have Wagtail configured to render a form with those fields I just removed. So this will fix that error. Search fields. All right. This is giving us some indexing abilities, which we might want to add in later, but really, I'm going to remove them. Comment this out. I'm going to mess up a little to do. I typically try to not have commented code. So I made those migrations, and it was just giving me a friendly warning. Okay, cool. So this is just going to apply that migration to the database. Oops. This is not what I want to commit. We're going to remove those. Now we're going to add a person field. And let's see. I think foreign key is all you need here. We'll use it's called a page chooser foreign key 2. We don't want to let the person be deleted if they've got a memorial or some related content, so we're going to just keep our data. We're going to have a tight constraint on that. Equals. Let's see if this lets me do it. If these are both page models, there might be a little bit of problem having the same memorial minute. Just singular in this case. A meeting can have multiple memorial minutes, and a person can only basically have one. So there might even be a way to constrain that. Let me just double check if there's a better Django field. It's just 1-to-1. Well, let's not get too strict here. It could be that multiple minute meetings want to post minutes on some members. It's really diverse, broad and diverse community, and people go between meetings, and meetings exist at different levels. So it's really hard to say whether that use case would never arise where a person could have multiple memorial minutes. So we'll stick with the foreign key. All right, cool. So let's just do that. Yes, dang it. This is one thing. It's a bit problematic is that since this model inherits from page, it's kind of getting clouded by every other thing that inherits from page, and really shouldn't do that. And I don't know even what model in the system is also inheriting from page that has a person property. I think this is kind of a bug in Wagtail. I know there's probably a technical reason why this is happening, obviously. I think that multiple models inheriting from page should be able to have the same property. I think that's why I must have done memorial meeting here for the same reason. This gets a little bit redundant because I'm already having a memorial instance. Now I have to say memorial person, memorial meeting. Yeah, it's not very... It's not super bad, but yeah. I've probably opened a support request at least. I think this should be a feature request, but I'm not sure how difficult it would be to implement. All right, we'll make those migrations. And it's non-nullable. Let's see if I can just do a string, empty string. Apply that migration to data. Commit these changes. Go ahead and push these changes up to GitHub, and I'll open a draft pull request so that you can follow along. Or maybe it's not going to let me do it. Let's see if I wiggle something around. Okay. That's buggy. So issue number 284, pull request number 285. Create draft pull request, just to signal that this is not ready. And here's the pull request. If you want to see what changes are being made, just go to the Files tab. All right, meanwhile, let's continue. So the other field I'm going to add here is something like display name. Models, character field, like max length 255 or something like that, like help text. Readable. that in. I see. This should be null and blankable or nullable. All right, again, commit those changes. Pushed them up. Cool, moving right along. The final things, I just need that Drupal metadata, which in the spreadsheet is called memorial ID. I'll just stick with that, but I'll prefix it with Drupal. Oops, this is the diff, I can't. So here we'll add a field down here. And this is a models integer, positive integer field. Again, it should be nullable. This is just for the transition period where we're migrating the content, and there could be some overlap between the migration where new memorials and new content is being added on the Wagtail website before we've decided to finally put the Drupal website to rest. I think we're going to keep it around just for a few months to be just really sure, and that might mean I need to rerun these importers again in that period if somehow the data import was not correct, or just we want to be cautious here. So the main idea is that this importer is reproducible here, and I can rerun it even on the same instance with hopefully without re-importing items, just editing them, I think, if they've already been imported. And we'll see this in a minute when we get down here. Oh goodness, I can get to those library item authors. Huh. Goodness. And as soon as I need to open a GitHub issue for any of these. But this is the memorials importer, so I'm just gonna clean up this script a minute. Yeah, here's what I was trying to illustrate is that we're going to check if it exists. Granted, this is library item because remember I would copy and paste this, but I'm going to go through and change all the code. It's the same structure, so the cool thing about reusing the same structure is it makes it easier to understand and maintain when I'm consistent across importers, and I just need to, I can kind of copy and paste stuff, but then I just need to be very careful and read through it, look for these yellow squiggles and get everything correct. So we've got Drupal memorial ID, and it's null and blank true. So let's go ahead and make that migration. That means that we can enter content that won't have been entered in the Drupal site in Wagtail during the transition period. All right, so we'll apply that migration. There we go. Push these changes up so you can follow along on the GitHub pull request. All right, we're about 30 minutes in, and I'm gonna just get the basic importer working. While it's on my mind, I'm going to create an issue, a good first issue. Welcome, contributions welcome, author. I'm not sure why, so just need to. Hope went in kind of a good first issue. It's a little bit challenging. You have to know about the data model, but yeah, I'll label it there nonetheless. This is part of the MVP here. I should really be kind of keeping this. MVP is what we need to get through the gate, and then post MVP is ideas that we can do later. All right, so that said, let's get back over to the code. I'm going to run this project in a minute, but the bulk of this session is going to be just getting data through a CSV into the project. All right, so we're going to check that the memorial exists. So we're going to find an object, filtering it by Drupal. Memorial ID equals library. And so library element to memorial, and the column here is memorial ID. So we're just going to be inconsistent here. So memorial ID. So we're going to get whether or not it exists, just a boolean there. If it exists, then we're going to actually fetch it. So here I'm just being really careful. How did I do that? So I'm going to name collision here. Let's say memorial data because this is the raw data. Yes, and then we're going to grab the memorial here. So this is just being very careful here. So we're fetching it. First, we just check if it exists. I guess it's a lighter weight query. Why does it keep doing that? It's weird. I guess when I push it up there, it's gonna somehow notice it. Okay, so then we're gonna grab it. Otherwise, we're gonna create it. So we're gonna create the memorial item, and since it's inheriting from page model, come on, it's got a title field built in. So that title could actually be used as this display name. Yeah, I think I can actually remove this display name field and we can just use the title field. The thing is, I'll have to, if the title field doesn't exist, I'll want to populate it by default. And that would mean the title field is mandatory. That would mean that you can't submit the form without the title being in there. The JavaScript validation that won't let the form submit, I think. So it means I can't set a default. I have this problem, and the slug is also generated from the title, meaning that's a further requirement to having the title set in the client before submitting it to the server. Since we have to put it in there anyway, and it's kind of duplicating this display name, I could probably convince Mary that due to the low volume of memorial minutes compared to other content, or like how frequently they're published, and there's only a few hundred, and for these I would set title, and when a new one is published, then Mary would just have to. There's 400. Mary would just have to always input a title. It has to anyway. So I'm gonna remove this display name. And we'll just use the title as the display name, which is an inherent part of the Wagtail page model. All right, so then back to the importer. This is just a user experience issue that may or may not be ideal, but I think the alternative is to set the title null, but that would mean I'd have to, as a developer, the developer experience would be reduced because I didn't have to handle the form creation to exclude the title field and handle page select generation. Might even mean we have to move away from the Wagtail page model, which then we would lose other benefits that are provided by that. It's not such a simple thing here. If we can just use the title field, I think it's a good compromise. All right, so in that case, I need to. All right, so everywhere it's importing, it's affecting the. Everywhere it's called import item is the data. And everywhere, so you can use just Control D to do multi-select. And then paste, in this case. And that was plural here. So those yellow squiggles are really helpful. Now, I've got rid of the yellow squiggles. Now I just have to very closely read to make sure that the field names are correct and all that stuff. And then look at the exact data structure of the memorial as it differs from the library item importers. Or the library items data structure. All right, so first we grab it or create it. Then we set the title, and this one will actually be a concatenation of two fields. First name, you have to get the exact key plus an empty space plus last name. Yeah. I believe that should be correct. I'll just copy and paste it to be certain. And make a typo in the process. All right, then the description. So we don't have a description on this, so it'll actually be the body. If I look at the model here, what do we have? I should say the minute memorial. Now here that could be a minute, but I think I did, for consistency, I prefix everything with memorial here because of the collision there on the Wagtail page model. So this is actually memorial minute, and that's going to equal the body field. Oh. And then if there is media, or parse the media blocks. And let's just double check. This is one of the annoying things about. I don't think any of them have media. Let's find out. No, that's just from the previous field. So I believe we don't need that block. We're going to look at these other fields though. And the other fields are essentially pretty straightforward. Date of birth, date of death, dates are approximate. Now this actually is not as straightforward. I need to get a truthy value out of this. So if it's not empty string, I think would be the case. And then the memorial meeting is also a little bit tricky because I need to do a lookup from the meetings. All right. Well, these are kind of straightforward. Let's do date of birth and date of death. So let's just pop those in there. Make sure I get the right fields. And this is pretty much going to be the case with it's manual data migration. So coming from any CMS into Wagtail or Django in general, you have to kind of write these scripts. And there's not really a graphical way of doing a date of birth, to my knowledge. Then there's probably some data integration tooling that lets you do this graphically with your graphical programming data flow language. But yeah, that's if and what's the default here? I think most cases we have data, or we're not using this. So I'm going to set the default to represent the majority of cases. It's a slight majority, but it's the majority. Well, there's a cluster of them there. I'd actually probably need to measure that. I think it's the majority. So principally surprise, or at least astonishment. Not much astonishment in any case, but let's see now what do we do. So if memorial data see, it's a bit annoying when I push the changes up though. It's telling me the pull request is not empty. Then that's true. There's that. And then what else do we have? Now this meeting. I'm going to do a try catch here. Try. Let's see. I think I can just do memorial. Look at the meeting by title, memorial data. And memorial meeting. We're going to set that. Use an F string here in just a second. Use single quotes here and put the F string there. What to complain about? Nothing. Just hide that line. All right. So if it doesn't exist, it's going to put it in the tree. If it does exist, it's already in the tree. It can't exist without that, and it's just going to save it. So this allows me to rerun it with existing data. I think this is, we're going to run it and see what errors occur. All right, so that means Python manage. We just wrote the management command called import memorials. The file is going to be in the import data memorials CSV. Actually, before I do that, just let me double check on the status here, because this is not going to work unless I've imported authors. Oops. So we're going to run it. Localhost, and if I go login, go to the admin, we have contacts. It looks like we had a lot of something. Hopefully contacts. Yes, it looks like we've got all the contacts imported. For safety, I should probably write a try catch around. I didn't put. And import the meeting. And as you can see here, I'm not using person, so I didn't find a memorial person. So it's essentially the same. Try catch, try accept. Here. But. This is the non-trivial one. I need to get or create. I have a function for this. Essentially, I need to get a person, but first I need to see if they exist. So I don't duplicate them. I think it's in the shared file. But this one's even overly complicated. So I'll write a little function here specifically for this. That's the wrong one. Sorry, right here. Let's see. So I'll just pass in that memorial data because there's several properties in there, and I'll need to define this. I wonder if it'll just do that for me. No quick fixes available. Get or create memorial person. Because they not every memorial is already a contact. We can't expect that to happen. So here I need this. And actually I don't need that. Let me just think about it fresh. For memorial data, first check if there's this contact ID, memorial, article author ID. If it's not empty, there we go. Then I'm gonna try to get the article ID. And I should only come up with one. And I should have an error except, but I believe that will throw a not found error. The problem is that the script will continue running though. I think I'll just let it pass over that person, and it should have a console error. Defaulting memorial person here to none. And then returning person. And then I just need one other case here. For else, create the person. Yeah, that's fine. Person equals think that's all the metadata we'll need from that. Just we're converting to given name and family name here. Oops, wrong. All right, so then we'll create a person and save it. I think you can do it at the same time. Yeah, and then if we're returning none, then something else, something happened here, which I think is reasonable and still keeps the code relatively succinct. I'm not sure of a better way of handling that would be to throw again, which would break the flow. I'd kind of like to import to succeed and just pass over the errors if possible. Import memorials file equals import data. All right, here's the moment of truth. How many errors I'm going to get, or what's the first error? Yeah. So yeah, there isn't a title property. So that's cool. And okay, so this is going not equals. So is not should be not equals. Yeah, it's subtle. I don't know. All right, so there's the first one. Then the other error I got was title equals memorial data. 60. Yeah. All right. So this is actually the concatenation. And it's probably just a concat. Actually, yeah, f strings is just a clean way here. Plus. Yeah, mixing quotes, or I need to mix quote, using the same quote. Syntax error. All right, so hopefully, let's see if that resolves those two issues. No, I did another is not. There's one more. There, so let's change that. Good stuff. Okay. Ready? Go. Progress? Nope. Broken. Memorial ID, node ID. And again, the data is not, it's memorial ID. Drupal, right. This should also be, this is the copy and paste code errors that cropping up. Memorial date is not defined. date is not defined. Data. And that's when I just overlooked the yellow squiggles. So it's a typo. Get into the errors. Article author ID, memorial data. There we go. Now I'm into this function, so getting further along. So I'm looking for article author IDs. I don't know how I've got. Oh. This is a weird one. So the memorial data. Should have key values for all of these. That's a little bit confusing. See what comes up again. Yeah, still. How about we print it? This is happening on the first one, so yeah. Oh. That's strange. That's the problem. All right. That was weird. Some data corruption. I think that was like a Unicode thing. Not sure what happened there. Styling leaking into it. Weird. All right. Memorial object has no attribute given name. All right. Yeah, this is, I introduced a bug here by removing those fields, and then this memorial full name method won't work now. But we can make our way over there to the memorial person. I think that should work. I don't know why it's needing to run that full name when importing, but all right. What's this? This is a much more difficult one. All right, so we're getting into tree. N-type object is what I think is happening here is that I didn't create the memorial index page. So that should happen in our scaffolding. Import. Let's see, what's it called? Initial. Scaffold initial content. Yes, I just need to add that step here. And I believe it's just at the top level. So it's got a none type, so it means it couldn't find something, and what the none object, couldn't find. It's something to do with this MP tree. Here's just my line of thought, and I know that Treebeard page, the Wagtail page model is using Treebeard to create a tree of content, and I think when I look at this importer script here at the bottom, it's going to try to add something to this child to this memorials index page, which is probably none up here. So I need to just scaffold it, and it's memorials is at the basically top level. There we go. So under the home page, add child, which is unfortunate. Well, here I'm not going to rerun this, but I'm just going to add it in. Did this get imported correctly? Yeah. I'm surprised I didn't use it. No, I did. No, actually, this is. What I think is I just didn't scaffold the initial content at all. So it's already there, but when I go to, let's see, I've only been working on the contacts model, so I think for simplicity, I just skipped that one. Community memorials. So I just need to add that to the running server. Okay. All right, now I can add one. So here's community. Here's memorials. There it is. The other way of thinking about this, that all seems to be wired up. It might not be that this is returning null. That this. Okay. No, looking up the existing one. Let's just get a little bit of clarity here. Some print debugging. So that's the deal. I think that's happening is it's trying to save when it doesn't exist. Just make that stand out a little bit. So it is getting into that code block, right? Oh man. Could be that the code is working now, but both of these are failing. So the data could be down to a data quality issue, but let me just double check the code. First, let's start with the Drupal ID. There should be an ID with 2608. Could be that I didn't import all of them. But if I come over to contacts, people, and the site needs to be running 2608. And Berkeley should have been imported as well. Contacts, people, and I just need to add that Drupal memorial ID here to the contact. That's the view. Refresh the page. An error. No, just now it's ready. And then the search field needs to include that. Ah, dang it. Now, come on. Fingers. And then 2608, wasn't it? 2608. So that exists. All right, we're getting closer. The data have been imported. We've got the Drupal author ID. This could be, in this case, could be relating to the integer and string mismatch. The data in the CSV is all string. There's no data types, and so I'm searching for something with a mismatched data type. All right, so let's come over here. And the Berkeley one is kind of funny, but let's do one at a time. So I just need to parse these to integers. Which is one that, yeah, I was using pandas on the other importers, and it kind of it casts the columns to the proper data type. I'm not sure that the Python dictionary reader is going to go to that extent. So the other one I want to check is the Berkeley meeting here? Berkeley. It's not. Well, let's do. Okay, so that's the other issue. The data in this case, though, is not available. All right, let me take a quick break. I'll have to just regroup my thoughts here and make sure that the Berkeley Friends meeting, Berkeley monthly meeting, is importing the data set. I think this first issue should be resolved. I'll be right back. All right, thanks for your patience. And further reflection, I realized the issue here might be that we don't have a comprehensive list of all the meetings currently. That means so far in this local environment, the only meetings that have been imported, I believe, are authors. Now we do have a data source, which is a more comprehensive listing of meetings. I can import, which are called CBCRM contacts. I have meetings and organizations there. I believe this meeting, Berkeley Monthly meeting, may just not have published an article, but should exist in the CBCRM contacts. So let me just, so there's basically the idea here is there's a lineage of content that you have to import certain dependent content before you can, certain parent content before you can import the dependent content successfully. I believe this is what we're bumping into. So I'm gonna Control C, kill the server, Control L, clear the terminal, and import these CBCRM contacts. So let's double check what the argument is. The other thing I would need to do is, in the case where the meeting doesn't exist, after importing the CBCRM contacts and the article authors, I would just need to create it like I did with the person. That may be the case regardless of these situations. I may have to do all three of these. Just run those two importers first and have the code create one where it doesn't exist. In any case, and these could be run like parallelized, where basically there's no dependency on one or the other, as long as you've got a deduping logic that will look for the existing meeting in both the CBCRM contacts importer and the memorials importer. Then it could be run in either order. All right, so this is going to be a lot of things regarding meetings. They are gatherings of friends, and what I'm looking for is the arguments. It's just file and the file name. So that's consistent with the other importers. There's a couple of exceptions, at least one exception in the importers where there's multiple related files. You have to load 2 files in order for the importer to work. But that's not the case here. This local database is a testing database, so I haven't run all of the importers on here. Only the ones that have been needed for the previous tests. And yeah, so we just have to kind of get the data we're running here. So, and this is like CBCRM. No, import data. What would this be called? I don't think I have the data locally. Trying to think, then I'll have to download it real quick. Let me see what will be easier here. Which way to flow around this? First, I'll check if I've got the CBCRM contacts data handy, which hopefully I do. Otherwise, I have to look at that exporter again. Data migration. CBCRM contacts. Here we are. Good. So I'll just export this CBCRM contacts. I'm off screen a little bit. We're in our private cloud office. Export download as CSV. Now it's encoding as Unicode UTF-8, which might have been related to the previous error. Now we're going to bring it into the import data directory. Pardon me. All right, why is this not responding? Huh. Ready? Roll. Oh, import CV contacts. Yeah, I did probably. Just start. That's pretty cool. It finds the approximate command. Here's the same thing. I think there's something corrupted with this only office exported because this is column number A, number 1 or whatever. Column A. I'm exporting this. And the contact ID is there, but it's just, I have to save it. Just, that's it, Control S. And run it again. Something, okay, well, there's other errors. Oh my goodness. This is huge. It's not there. Oh man, this is. So it's essentially, this may be an old export from 9 months ago. When was the last time I edited this? 9 months ago? When did I add this? 8 months ago. So it could be the data was exported and missing. The file I have is missing those properties. So basically what I'm going to do, I think this whole worship time was its own addition. This needs to at least pass. I just want to get this import running, and I'll work on the data later. Yeah, there we go. So just an incomplete import on my local development. I'm going to uncomment the code and just run the proper exporter again when the time arises. So memorial doesn't exist. Could not find existing content. 2608. Yeah, so it's a string. It's a string. And this, so this is printing out a string, but this data type. Both the Drupal ID for the person should be an integer, positive integer. Let me double check that. Person, Drupal author ID. Yeah, it's an integer field. Both of these, positive integer more or less, but okay. So let's close these. A few of these things. And could not find existing for such and such. And again, let me make sure that this is Drupal author ID is being displayed. Yeah, the person model. Let's see, where's the contacts? People. The Drupal author ID is here, 2608. Does exist. And let me double check my importer that I'm using the Drupal author ID. Yeah. It should be get. Find returns a query set. Get returns the object. Oh man, that was a tricky one. No. But that's going to be a bug nonetheless. We need to get the person. Okay, so I got rid of that. Our memorial doesn't exist, which is cool. Attribute error. Let's catch this attribute error. Where's that? So memorial doesn't exist. Let's see which one is which. Ah, come on. I'm getting kind of tired. I gotta take a break. Let's see if we can just print the memorial next page. It should give us the title of it. Memorials. Oh. So what could be the case then is that the memorial index page actually works here. The memorial doesn't have that property, the attribute. right, so here I'm kind of zooming in on it. If it doesn't either find the person or the meeting, it can't really add the memorial. And if there's any null values here. There are some null values. That's not many. So I'm just gonna make note of these. We need to make sure the memorial meeting exists. Can't be null. Can't have a memorial meeting without a memorial meeting. I think that's one of our business. That's our business logic. And the other one was that add column library item authority. Yeah. Cases. These are kind of smaller task lists. I like the Asana task list where you can have a assignee and a due date. Just wish Asana could tie it more tightly into the GitHub so people could create the Asana issues without having a membership or something. All right. Well, I'll have to check it out. Feedback later. Interesting. Okay, so where was I? For now, I'm going to pass over those. How does it? That's the memorial zone of a memorial meeting. The memorial meeting can be optional. No. I think for the sake of this, I'll make the memorial meeting optional. Then on this importer, I need to get memorial meeting or none. Meeting return meeting. So if, in this case, memorial data, memorial meeting is not, or not equals empty string. Yeah. Then we want to try that. There would be an exception. Oops, wrong way. If we cannot find it, if it is not null, not empty, and we can't find it, then that's an exception. I don't know if this is the proper way of but I can't pass because this is not the context of the loop anymore. So in the exception case, we'll print and then return none, which might be what happens here anyway. With the default case, I don't know what happens in an exception if it breaks out of the flow. So I think I'm just going to play it safe. I don't know that much about Python. And so none is an acceptable value now. We're still getting the thing. Errors. We're basically getting a no op. What if I solve this problem fast? Yeah, so nothing is happening. None of them are able to be added to. It's a bit frustrating, man. Dang it. Wow, we're almost 2 hours in and I've got a major bug. Feels major. It's right here. We're zeroed in on it. Cannot add a child. So what the heck is going on here? Let me just double check. Someone's like printing one out. We should just print the title, but it's actually printing. Where all am I printing here? This looks like memorial data. Let me just find all my print statements. Print, could not find. So I'm only, I'm printing the memorial data there. No, damn it. Pardon me. I'm frustrated. I'll probably have to take a break if I can't get through this and come back to it at a later date. It's 2 o'clock anyway. I need to switch context. Try it again now. Come on. Yeah, so basically this is back to where I am. It's a little cleaner. I cannot add this memorial as a child of a memorial index page. And now the error is a bit more opaque because I'm catching the exceptions. Let me just take a closer look at the exception. Attribute error. What attribute is it that we're specifically looking for? Is this, in other words, and I believe the attribute is whether or not it exists here. Something happens when you do this add child. It's going to take that and do something with it. Set an attribute on that, which is the PTR, something about the page tree location or something. Inc path. Get last child. Self no get last child. Inc path. Get last child. This could be a clue. This might even be. This might be a bug in Wagtail. No way, really? If this does not succeed, this get last child returns none, this property won't exist. None type from get last child. And right now there are no children of the memorial index page. Server's not running. Because it's an empty site. So there's no memorials. The community memorials index page has no children. I don't know. So it lets you do them in the future. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so here's another thing. Lots of little details here. Ah. Let me just see if there's some other. This is probably something I'm doing wrong. That's a good sign. At least I'm not the only person. Oh, okay, so this is cool. I need to double check. Huh, all right, that's interesting. Okay, whoa, that's cool. Matthew Westcott is a really awesome person. He's so on point with things. Fixed tree, that's the person who used that. Man, oh dude, I would not have figured that out. All right, so all right, so this is something we can figure out. So if I look at the data type here, it's a date field. It doesn't want the hours, minutes, seconds. But in my importer, I'm passing in string to format. Date. Let me think here for a second. Because we don't want a date time. Let's find a clean and Pythonic way of doing this. Hey, what's up, Daniel? Welcome. Kind of rounding out. I'm hoping I'm getting down to the home stretch. These are little minor data validation errors at this point. This is going to strip out the time from this time string and might return a date object that should be sufficient for Django. Ooh, exactly 2 arguments, 1 given. Yeah, you need the formatting string. And copying and pasting, but I believe it's going to be year, 4 digits, dash, month, day, hour, minute, second. How are you doing, Daniel? Do you do some Python development or Django or Wagtail or anything? Let me just double check our data here. Make sure I've got the year, month, day, t, hour, minute, second. Oh, sorry, same error. I've got to then use the datetime format. Takes 2 arguments. Didn't pass the second one. Mm. 1931, 10, 28. Yeah, cool. Wagtail is really excellent project. And it's kind of cool. It doesn't really deviate from Django. It kind of extends it. Matthew Westcott, one of the core Wagtail developers, has given a presentation recently, within the last year at least, that I was watching on the Wagtail blog, and it's like, let me see if I can find the series here real quick. Really, he articulates the strategy and philosophy of Wagtail of it's not like what he called create a new platform, but rather just extend Django and add the missing parts. They have these what's new in Wagtail. I believe that might have been where he presented. When was this one? 2021. Matthew Westcott. I'm not gonna be able to find it, but there's some these what's new in Wagtail are some really cool ways to check out the what's going on, new features and updates. Yeah, so basically all of the things that you learn about Django are still applicable in Wagtail projects, and Wagtail kind of gives you a little bit of a smoother learning curve as well by hiding a few of the things from your development workflow, like creating URL routing patterns and views if you're just using the Wagtail page model, for example. All right, so this, I just need to get this correct date format. So year, let me just, year, DD mama, year, probably, MMDD, where, MMDD dash DD. That's strange. Ah, spammy stuff. All right, here we go. So we have a 4-digit year, which is capital Y. We have a 2-digit month, 0 padded, so lowercase m is correct there. The humanize feature in social network, that's a good idea. So for example, 3 days ago, as opposed to an exact date, that's a cool suggestion. Yeah, I should do that. And single D here should work. Now there's a T, now we have to look at this hour, minute, second. Hour, minute, second. It's always 0 here. So X might be fine. Capital X. Let's try that. Ah, all right. So I think this corruption of the page tree could be because I keep running this importer where it's not quite getting to the step where it saves the, where it adds the memorial to the tree because of other failures, and then the page tree gets corrupted. So what was that? Make sure I remember that. Oh man, run a bunch of stuff. What? It was recently. Fixed tree. Are you interested in working on a social network project, Daniel? We have a Wagtail social network project you may have noticed. They were just starting out, and we have a few issues that are good for new contributors. Okay. New error, though. This is always a good sign. Let me just fix that tree again. We got this, it's actually Wagtail Social Network now, project here. If you're interested, I've been working on that in a few live streams, and these issues are relatively low-hanging fruit type of issues, kind of good for new or good first issues. This is really conventional Wagtail and Django stuff, and I'm also available to help mentor or guide the development process if you have any questions or you get into any troubles. And it would help speed this project along as well. I'll do my best as we go through that project to document the next steps, whatever the plans are, and describe them in a way that has specific steps to getting done, and how related articles that show you the tutorial on how to do it. So yeah, feel free just to, on any of these issues, go ahead and just kind of claim the issue, for example, and then I'll put your name there, and then I can help you work through it. And you can see here's an example where we had some problems with migrations, and I think we were able to get through those. And so yeah, this is intention here is to be a community-driven project. Pretty much my Wagtail, well, the Western Friend website is built in Wagtail. They're not tutorials, but at each step of the way, I've kind of tried to get in the habit of summarizing what my learnings were from that day, and that way you can see some practical examples of working code. But I don't have like a tutorial series on getting started with Wagtail, but if you just want to learn Wagtail, there's like Learn Wagtail website. Wagtail.com. I think it's still free. It's a really good resource. I would start there. They have this free course. It's $28 now. It used to be free, but it's worth it. I think this is good content. There's a couple of free lessons. Yeah, I'm not sure what else. There's not a lot of other, well, there's the Wagtail getting started tutorial. It's excellent. Make sure that's the correct one. Your first Wagtail site. Yeah, this was the good one. I would recommend this for a free resource. And the Wagtail documentation has been recently updated as well. They got a visual overhaul, and they made it a little bit more extensive. I think they changed the way things are organized as well. So yeah, those are the primary resources I would recommend. And if you just want to learn by doing, and you help out with this project, you'll I can also guide you along the way with the Wagtail Social Network website. So let me just close down some of these things. They're going to be a little bit confusing. Didn't use that. So this is different. We're getting this error. Yeah, you're welcome, Daniel. Welcome to the Wagtail community. I wish you success in your learning journey. It's a really remarkable project. And once you learn the basics of how to think in Wagtail and how to think in Django, I think it's going to open a lot of ideas and opportunities. All right, so let me just do this one more time. So I fixed the tree. What is the memorial? Has no memorial person. Yes, okay, so this is a key issue. We need to be able to find the person or create the person in all cases. One thing I didn't do is I didn't save the person. Get or create print. So first, get the person, but this should have saved it. Let me double check. I'll check the people model, make sure that if it's a tree model, if it's a page-based model, it needs to be put into the tree. So I think this is not sufficient here. Contact models person, it's a page model. Okay, so it needs to go into the tree. You need to do that. I need some reference code to help myself out here. When I'm importing these, I do have this shared thing that's a get or create person. This doesn't actually create. All right. Trying to see if I can reuse this code. It's a bit complicated. I'm gonna violate the dry. Principal. Oops. Actually not using that. And this would be memorial data. And these actually are irrelevant. Memorial data. I started to get fatigued after this long couple of hours. Just, yeah. In this context, okay, you're building a social app with Django. Yeah, that makes sense. Wagtail might be a bit overkill and could be, like, if you don't have a content management type project, CMS, makes sense not to include Wagtail there. On our Django, our Wagtail social, we obviously by name sake went with Wagtail because there's an aspect of content management and membership management that would be useful to have, like an administrative user interface. But yeah, you could really get far without Wagtail just the same. All right, let me think about the context here. So we're just creating a person. They need to exist in the person index page. Let me see what I grabbed here. We don't need to check for duplicates here. Well, I suppose it doesn't hurt. And then, let me see, actually, what it is. double check. First name. Yeah, cool. Daniel, is your project on GitHub or anything? We might be able to check it out on the stream. If you have like any features planned or roadmap or things like that, I might be able to help out. Fix tree. I think my tree is messed up again because I run these imports with a couple of failures. 18, yeah, so it's getting through the list, and some of them are succeeding. I think this number should only go up, but we shouldn't have tree issues when at the end of the day. All right. All right, I'm gonna be able to work through this. Oh, man. This we shouldn't need. I don't think we need to check for deduplication. It's actually check for duplicates at least. It's kind of a bit more hard to reason about. Yeah, so get or create. So we're going to get them or create them. All right, that makes sense. Fairly clean code does what it says. However, person should never be none. Oh, this is interesting. Let me just, so this is actually throwing from here. Probably have to remove them. Figure that out later. And full name is being used. Memorial object is no full name. Models pi. I see. Because I was catching the title there. Now we're explicitly setting it. So yeah, that's all. So actually this whole thing is unnecessary. And it's not the full name that's the problem here. It was the fact I was overriding the save method. Yeah, all right. New errors, that's a plus in my book. So we got Ted Smith, friend from Grass Valley, friends meeting. All right. So something's still going on with this get or create. So it printed Ted Smith. That's good. This should not return none. Wow, this has been such a wrestling match, this pull request. Alright. Oh. This is going to got you that the data actually has this NA value as an empty string. So, git create if article. Now equals NA, then create them. Oh goodness. Alright, so here's this. What I'll do is just make sense. We have a mixed data type. We shouldn't be getting into the block here though. That's right. Yes, this is the case where they won't have an article author ID. got it. Yep. All these, I'm introducing errors here. There's some errors in the data. All right, we're getting progress. I think those are just notifications, errors. All right. And missing values, I think, are going to be natural here. Here's one. Rare, but possible. All right. Whew. Whew. All right. I'll have to check my model here. That should be a nullable field. I'll make sure. Model. We don't always know. So it's a fact. We have nullable data there. Oh boy. It's a bit messy, but all right. Yeah, so close, Daniel. I think we're really close. All right, so lose my train of thought. Basically, my memorial doesn't exist, which is cool. That's just a. So these prints, I think I can remove. I need these. I need to conditionally check though. Now this field is nullable. Yeah, not equals empty string. Then I can do that one. Oh, there we go. Similarly, otherwise they're nullable. And we'll just take out some of these prints. They're not so useful anymore. Print debugging. I think this exception handling is now good. And that print debugging is gone. Let's go through and find print. So in exceptions, I need to print myself an error, but not just in the run it, just the standard flow, code flow. We don't need to print those out anymore if we're getting close. All right, ready? Ready, All right, that's fine. Got some missing data. And I think at this point I'll have to take a break and then come back to this. And I think we're updated. A moral person cannot be null. All right. Could not find the existing contact with Drupal ID 2402. Where are we at? There we go. 2402, 2402. Contacts, people, 2402. All right, so that's the case where the data don't exist. I think just giving myself a little bit of information to track those down, but having the code fail gracefully is about enough right here. Yowza, some mail just arrived. Something big in the mail. Magazine or something. Yes, so what line were we failing on? Okay. Could not find him. So yeah, basically we can't find the when I can't find the person, it needs to just skip over that one and just tell me about it. I think that's why I was returning none from here. So I'm returning none. Get or create memorial person. So basically, goes this. And then make it a little bit safer. Pass over that one, right? Just can't create it. Control C, Control L. And I guess the next step, if this succeeds at least, will be to track down. There's our data. Let me double check this. Maybe this 4. Does it continue? All right, so it's continue. Yeah, learning about Python. All right. Hmm. 40%, 45. There we go, 2402. So these, if they're missing gaps in the data, I can figure those out and clean it up. It's, as long as it's not my logic or something, yeah, like that. Some kind of bug, logic bug, or even data corruption issues like we were experiencing before. Man, this is heavy. Very cool. Yay. Yep. We've got data. All right, I think I will do a recap of this video, of this session, although the pull request is not complete. I'm going to go ahead and merge my changes, though. This is at least this. I'll probably just read this code from GitHub in no particular order, aside from the file name, actually. I'm not going to commit that because we're just using that for kind of debugging. Welcome to the recap of today's CodeBuddies.org live code hangout. Today we've been continuing working on the Western Friend website, content migrators. We have content in Drupal of various types and structure, and need to bring that over to Wagtail and fit that into the Django and Wagtail data model that we've defined. I've got some nice lint errors I will have to go through. This pull request is still a work in progress, but I just want to recap the progress that was made today. It was a bit of a struggle and a lot of head scratching, and but learned a lot and feel like it's in a good place right now. So I'm just going to read through these in the order that they are, like as the files are organized alphabetically. This is the bulk of it, of the work, though, is this memorials importer. And essentially, it's just a Django admin command, and the name of the command is basically the file name. Above the command definition, I just have some helper functions to help me organize the code. Let me see if I change this to like unified, if it's easier to read. Give me the full width. It's a little cleaner that way. So yeah, here we have just some imports. We're parsing data from a CSV, so we need that. We're handling some date strings a little bit further down. We're defining these commands, these Django administration commands, and this gives us a way of visually iterating over the changes. Once the content is imported, it looks like this. It displays on the memorials page, as well as in the Wagtail admin, the memorials section, and lets you edit them and things like that. The content structure has a title, which is how the person's name should be displayed in the memorial, and a foreign key to a person in our contacts people collection or date table. As these optional dates of birth and death, it's not always known, so we've made those optional. And we have a thing here to indicate when they're approximate. And the content here comes from the minute itself. So I'll have to double check that all the content is being imported correctly. I haven't actually done that. Put that on the to-do. Something like that. Because that doesn't look correct. looks like I got the first paragraph, but not the rest of it. And then there's a foreign key to the meaning. So again, this is a work in progress. There's a lot of nuances that I've had to work out. When you view the minute, it shows the same information. This will eventually be a link to the meeting itself. And likewise, we should be able to link to a profile for the person that might show other related content, like articles they've written, things like that. And we're basically rebuilding this memorial feature in the Drupal website with some improvements. So we'll continue just reviewing the code real quick. And it's 10 files, but I think some of them are just smaller changes. So when we create a person, I'll read through these helpers and then read through the body of the command. We're using the Wagtail page model, so we actually need to nest the people under an index page or some kind of parent page. The person content needs to go under an index page or person index page. Here we're setting the as none initially so that we can have a safety check outside of this function that would halt or skip the current item in the control flow, so we could move on to the next one in case of finding errors. So we get this index page, and we just try creating a person. In this one, we're going to call this from another function in a moment. And if any exception occurs, which this is pretty minimal, it's not likely, we'll just print that out, and then we're going to add the person as a child of the person index page. So everything is nice and organized, and then save the index page, which also saves the person. And we'll return that person or none. So similarly, we are looking for a memorial meeting, which is the affiliation. So we're going to try having none as a sensible default. We'll try getting that meeting, so get the memorial meeting or none, and we'll throw an error. And we'll get or create the memorial person. This is going to take a couple of methods. So again, for safety and allow us to continue the flow control, we'll return none as sort of a default. And in our data, we have basically a field that contains the article author ID, and mostly the value is not applicable because most of the memorials didn't end up publishing any articles. But in the case it's not, we want to get that person by author ID. In the CSV everything is a string. There's no data type, so I just need to cast it here to a data type, to an integer. And if we couldn't, or in other words, if we didn't need to create, find somebody, get the person, we will create them. That was the function up here, single purpose function. Yeah, and those are basically the helpers. We have a command that takes a file argument and handles it. This is the bulk of the work. All of the memorials are also part of a tree model, the page tree model, and there's an index page that contains all of those. We're going to read that CSV file as a list of dictionaries, and we're going to iterate over those, the data from each of those dictionaries, and this is going to give us a progress indicator. And first we'll check if it exists, the memorial. That way we can rerun this importer and just update existing data without having to kind of drop and recreate everything. Otherwise, we're going to create one. The title is going to be the combination of first and last name, and the memorial ID is going to be an integer. This lets us kind of keep track of which ones have been imported so that we can rerun this script, for example. And then we're going to use that helper function to get or create the person. We pretty much always need one. So if we're not able to, for whatever reason, get or create that person, we're just going to continue along the flow of the importer. So it's going to just skip to the next record. But then in the case that we're able to get or create that person, we're going to start creating the other fields on the memorial, like the title field from the first and last name. I could use f-string here. I should probably be consistent. The memorial minute, it's going to take that data, the body, and I've got to double check that that body is being parsed correctly. It's basically raw HTML that was exported from Drupal, but I think Wagtail is going to sanitize that and only let certain tags pass through. So I need to make sure that the sanitization is not actually just discarding child tags. For example, if a span can't pass through and it discards some weird nested markup from Drupal, I might have to get more advanced in how I handle that. Then we have these dates, these date time data for the dates of birth and death, and it's in this format, datetime format. And what we're going to do is, in the case that it exists, because it doesn't exist on every field, so when it's not empty, we're going to strip the time off there, because we're only really concerned with creating a date. The Drupal doesn't have just a date object, it only had date time objects, I guess. So we had to kind of jump through some hoops to get that to work. And so yeah, we just stripped the time off the date of birth and using this format. In the same case for the date of death, both of which could be missing. Most likely the date of birth is missing. The date of death is usually known more accurately, but there's also, we want to know or let people know when the dates are approximate. And we're just going to add this, their meeting is again the affiliated meeting. We're going to get it or none, and this field I think should not be optional, but there are at least a couple of examples in the data where there was no memorial meeting, so I loosened up the restriction there on the data. We're going to have to come back to that to see if that's something we want to allow. I think we should allow it, at least in the data model. So the business logic shouldn't really be too strict about it, but I think the memorial person is pretty essential. But we could loosen that one up as well. So we're going to basically, if it doesn't exist, we know we need to add it, the memorial as a child of the memorial index page. If it does exist, then we can just save it because it should already be in position on the tree. In the case where we add it to the memorial index page, we just save the memorial index page, which I believe will cascadingly save the memorial itself as well, because it has to update an attribute on the memorial, indicating what the level of the tree is or something. It's some internal field that Wagtail uses. We've got a couple migrations here. We're cleaning up the data model. We switched over to using a foreign key to the person model. So the first, our family and given name are actually on the person model. So we just removed those from the memorial, and we use the title as a combination of the two. Then on the memorial, we added a memorial person. So here's that foreign key to the contact person field. And likewise, let's see, added a field, display name. I actually just added this and removed it, and realizing that I needed to just use the title as the display name. So I might squash these migrations at some point. Then we need to keep track of the metadata. So on the memorial, we're going to keep track of the Drupal internal identifier during the migration process. Once we've migrated and start entering memorials directly in Wagtail, this will no longer be necessary. But yeah, as a general thing, when you're migrating data from one CMS to Wagtail or one CMS to another, keep that internal metadata in place, the most accurate identifying characteristic, usually an ID field, like an integer field, so that you can just make sure everything is imported correctly and rerun things, because you'll have to rerun it through the development process, and potentially, even when the site's live, you might realize you made a big mistake and need to rerun that importer on the live Wagtail site, for example. So then I just removed that display name field again, because I realized that the title field was going to be sufficient for that. Added the dates or default value of the dates or approximate field defaulting to false. I think most of the cases, the dates or approximate was not true. Basically, it was empty. So that means the dates were known accurately. And so, following the principle of least astonishment, even though this is would be a mild form of astonishment, I just make the default false, and that means the checkbox is also unchecked in the user interface by default. Let's see, then we're going to alter a field memorial, meaning there's a foreign key, allowing it to be blank and true, because there was like one or two cases where there wasn't a memorial meeting, and I loosened up that constraint. We need to look at the data to see if that's an error in the data, and if we want to allow that in the business logic or the data model, which I think should be fine to leave as optional. And I think we did that with these date fields, blank and true, null is true, because there are some examples, particularly in the date of birth, where that didn't exist. And when I wrote the data model, I didn't have this experience of importing the data. So that stuff gets cleaned up and improved along the way. Then we made all these changes to the memorial, so you can just see basically what the migration is described, making them nullable, and the foreign key relationship. So I'm not going to describe these. There's this full name. Since I had removed the given name and family name from the memorial model, then we just needed to traverse from the self to the memorial person to get the given and family name through that foreign key relationship, which also means that that's a mandatory relationship. Otherwise, this full name function won't work. And this is used at least in the user interface when we're viewing the memorials. I believe over here the full name function is invoked. And then let's go back to the code. So, actually we were on GitHub. My bad. That's it. And just using the proper field widget, this page chooser, since we're using a foreign key now, we want to be able to select them. And Wagtail has a built-in page chooser that lets you search and filter and then select. And it's a pretty nice widget, so we're just using that out of the box. I removed these search fields, the given name and family name, since they were no longer on the model. I did leave, and I don't tend to do this, but I left that commented code. And just as a reminder here to see if we do want to add any indexing, such as on the memorial minute-rich text field. And then I was overriding the save function and setting the title, but now we're using the title directly. So we're actually using these page content panels, which, as you can see, displays the title field by default. So I didn't need to create that behind the scenes any longer. And that's, I guess, it. It's been pretty challenging. Again, the pull request is a work in progress, is a draft. I think it's pretty close to being done. I'm going to have to just go through this checklist to make sure that we, we're pretty thorough on the work. But yeah, about 2.5 hours, I guess, on that, and some progress. That means that this code is reusable, though, so feel free to check it out and see if it's relevant to the projects you're working on. Again, this has been a CodeBuddies.org live code hangout. Thanks for stopping by, and if you want to get involved in the CodeBuddies community, you can check out what hangouts are scheduled and join any of these activity groups that might suit your interests. All right, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.